Good evening, everyone. Nice to meet you. We're very honored of being here today and presenting our work to you and to being, involved in such a important award with such a lot of architects we admire personally. So it's really a true honor. I would like to start the presentation just resuming that the project is about a renovation of a school that was built during the 60s. And as mentioned already during this morning by Marco in his presentation, it was the result of a competition that was held by two private foundations to renovate a public school. And to give a little context, I think it's important to underline that this typology, this type of building is really representing the majority of Italian schools that could currently find nowadays in our territory. And this is because the majority of those investments in educational field were done in the demographical boom after World War II, and therefore they are really scattered around the peripheral and suburban areas of industrial cities, such as Torino is, actually. And after that, very few renovations were done onto these schools. This is the building before renovation. It is exactly an example of how those buildings were built during this period. So it's an exposed reinforced concrete skeleton with masonry wall, single glass partitions. And it was not, of course, a masterpiece of modernism, but in our opinion, it had some qualities that we wanted to preserve. So we saw some potential in the way the volumes were organized and interconnected visually one to each other, in the presence of small voids, patios, and interstitial spaces. And but it's also true, and we were aware of several technical problems that this building was facing, such as structural problem. It was built in 1961, so prior the seismic regulation that is nowadays actual in our country, so it was no longer suitable. It needed major intervention, like reinforcing pillar, reinforcing lower beams, and so it also requires significant demolitions in order to make those interventions possible. If we go to see in the inside, the kind of spatial organization that this building presented was the typical and traditional corridors with a sequence of rooms, very traditional and perhaps rigid also. And but it's also important to say that if this was suitable when it was built nowadays, with the fact that there have been made evolutions in the way education is taught. There is also a new desire of occupancy of spaces. So those spaces were not really supporting anymore the needs of the school community. So the question that was really stressing in the competition brief was, how can we overturn this condition to make this space livable again, and to also, of course, work on the building envelope and trying to see how we can update the entire structure. So to answer with this question, we started looking at the building from a larger perspective, and it was quite clear to us that this kind of introverted system was having a sort of poor relation with the outside. So our first decision was to overturn this condition by rethinking the outdoor spaces. This is the existing building in the site plan, in the context, and basically the decision was to move the main entrance to what was the back of the building that was used as a parking space, so it was totally abandoned area and not used at all, and to transform this into a garden that can be open to the public with a new pedestrian connection, and of course also the program organized accordingly with the activities that could be open that are facing directly into this space. On the other side, we were thinking how to work on renovating the building envelope, and the idea was to work mainly by addition, so by adding new steel structures that could accommodate new opportunities for didactics. So that was basically the intention to for the work on the building envelope. And it was very much inspired also by, we did research, as we do usually when we face a topic we do not know much more about. And since the competition brief was really stressing among the relation between architecture and pedagogy, we found to be very fascinated by those experiments of open air schools that were done during the 20s. And we thought that those principles of freedom of movement were very much in step with our time. So in a way, we try to refer to this when we propose this system of interconnected spaces, of this addition that characterize, of course, the new image of the building, and the way the spaces works, because all along the perimeter, the building is characterized north and south by this system of filter in between indoor and outdoor that are meant to be used for recreational purpose and also for didactic use. Speaking about the addition and the new facade, we decided to work with steel structure, both to to speed up the construction, as it was meant to last only 1 year, and also because of we wanted to refer to this to establish a sort of dialogue with the existing building in reusing the frame as a typological element, but making it very light in order to provide a lighter sense of the new main facade. And the reason why also these 3 orders are span with different verticality is to provide a new rhythm in the facade, and also because we decided to use this stainless steel mesh in order to even further make it more visible, this permeability, and we needed a certain dimension to compress those elements. In the other facade that are not touched by those addition, the work is more on the materiality. It's very simple. It's just plaster, of course, treated with insulation. And in order to create a sort of variety all around the building, we decided to use different grains and to create a sort of a slight depth in the facade and a slight variety among them. And this was also a way to refer in our intention, since we were working with a very limited budget for the amount of work that the structure required. It was also a way to refer to the work on textures that would typically be found in the architecture built in the 60s. Then the project, when we start to look in the insides, is very much characterized by this continuous interconnection between the indoor and outdoor spaces. In this case, the ground floor, we see the atrium that is bringing together in the two southern building that are hosting the library and the cafeteria, and on the north, the gym, and then all a system of courtyard and of course the garden. On the upper part, on the upper floors, the plans is organized, of course, according to the regional grid structure. But even though it seems quite regular, as the intention was that of creating a sort of interconnected system of common indoor and outdoor spaces, we try to work with vertical elements that could parcelize accordingly the spaces when needed, such as stands, glazed partitions in the inside, of course in the outside. And this is a zoom of the didactic activities in the cluster that are organized with 3 main classrooms that have a that work actually as a hinge between the distribution space in the inside and the terraces, a common space and a sort of wardrobe for entering the cluster. And this is a sequence of images that is explaining this idea of intersection and transition between spaces. So on the bottom, there are always the images of the existing conditions. So this is quite explaining well how also the corridor, since the space in the school was not that abundant, also the corridors become active part of the learning environment by directly connecting the spaces inside of the classrooms. But also other larger opportunities were given by those very large atrium that the building already had. So just working with soft partition, it was a way to make the schools understandable that those spaces could be also used in a more flexible way for didactic temporary activities. And another example can be found in the library. Again, the space was not that much, so with just working with soft partition, we can provide spaces that could be used for presentation or other reasons. Again, speaking about materiality, the work in the interior is rather neutral. It's kind of going in contrast with the strong presence of the color and the materiality in the outside that is characterizing the building. And the intention was to provide a very calm environment with only vertical circulation, and other elements could be intended as active elements. But also, it's very visible the work on the system, also on the electric plants that couldn't be fitted in the slab, so they needed to be considered as addition to. And going back to a short comparison, and this is also explaining a kind of subtle I would say that this project is really a system of small intervention that has been done on a carefully studied existing building. In this case, there was a previously not really used space that was facing a trafficated street. Then we decided to keep the trees, protect them, but at the same time providing an extension also for the laboratories organized there, and provide a sort of intimacy by the heavy traffic that could be found in that street, or again undercovering the space of. There was a Hoadley ramp that was connecting the space of the piazza, the quote of the piazza, to the previous entrance that was located on the upper level. So just by removing this, it was possible to find another space that could be used on the outside. And again, this is the renewed relation that could be found with what was once the backside of the building. And also the permeability. We excavate basically all the ground floor in order to make it usable, actually, because it was very low height, and also to provide a continuity with exterior. As I mentioned, the project was working with a very limited amount of time. It was only 1 year, and that was because of the agreement that were taken by the clients and the municipality. And of course, that was not very easy. And also, I think that it affected the design proposal since the beginning. But in the same time, in this short amount of time, there was also a strict confrontation that was carried out with the school community, not only to explain them the project, but also to understand if actually we could absorb more of their needs within the design. And in effect, there were some inputs that were put it back and put it in discussion, or some other decision that were already taken. and some images of how the school is used. And I think that this process we did was very important in order to prepare the community, the school community, to the possibilities that could be found in the new building, and also to maybe shift a little bit their attitude toward a more traditional way of teaching and learning into a more open one. And again, that yes, that moments of occupying also the distribution spaces and so on. And as I mentioned, also the work on the elevations and on the materiality was also a way to, for us, it was very important to make a project that was establishing a dialogue with the existing building, so kind of respecting it, but also providing a new character and making it more understandable. That was like a unitary intervention, no? And not only a sequence and system of punctual intervention. So I think that for us, this was a very important experience, and it's really, it was really precious, not only for like, yes, getting into this topic of working in with educational typologies, but also to explore a more free way of working in which you can really think about an open structure that could be intended as a flexible and system that could be also occupied more freely by the users. So thank you.